Good afternoon and welcome to the September 21st regular meeting of the Parks, Recreation and Community Services Commission meeting. I will start with a roll call. Commissioner Sasatrian? Kalfayan?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
Wu?
Present.
And President Fuad is absent. At A, report of recording clerk regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for the September 21st, 2015 regular meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on or before Friday, September 18th, 2015. At this time, Commissioners, in light of President Fuad's absence, I would like to start with item 6 under action items. A, election of officers. At 1 would be president and 2, secretary. So the business before the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission is the selection of a new president. I will now entertain nominations for that office.
Okay. I would nominate Alex Wu.
I have one nomination for Alex Wu. Are there any further nominations? Being that there's no further nominations, I will close. I will proceed to the roll call. Commissioner Sasatrian?
Yes.
Fuad is absent. Commissioner Kalfayan?
Yes.
Commissioner Michaels?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wu?
Can I say yes for myself?
Yes. Okay, so I now declare Commissioner Wu the duly elected president of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission. Mr. President, the task before you now is to open the floor for nominations for secretary.
All right. So at this time, we would like to see if we could get a nomination for the secretary position.
I would nominate Commissioner Kalfayan if he's willing.
Okay. I'm accepting it.
I believe we have a nomination.
Okay, any further nominations? No? Okay, hearing no further nominations, I'll proceed with the roll call. Commissioner Asatrian?
Yes.
Fuad is absent. Kalfayan?
Yes.
Okay, Michaels?
Yes.
And Wu?
Yes.
Okay, I now declare Commissioner Kalfayan the duly elected secretary of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission. Now, President Wu, if you'd like, you can take the center seat.
Wow. Look at that, moving up in the world.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. So we'll move on to the second item on the agenda.
Sure, that would be item 2, upcoming council agenda items.
Yes, President Wu, members of the Commission, on September 22nd, which is tomorrow night, the City Council is dark. On Tuesday, September 29th, we have 2 items on the agenda. One is a motion to reject all bids related to the construction of mechanical systems for the Dugmajan Barn Nature and Educational Center and authorize staff to rebid that project at a later date. And the second item is a resolution to appropriate $619,000 in state grant funds that were received by the city for the Palmer Park renovation project. Then on October 6th, we have 2 agenda items. One is a motion to authorize bidding for the Palmer Park renovation project. And the second is a motion to authorize bidding for the Civic Auditorium exterior improvements, both of which are items that you had reviewed and approved and recommended to City Council 2 months ago. So they're just now getting to the Council for bidding. And, Mr. President, that's all we have on schedule to date.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Next item, please.
Item 3, Commission staff comments.
No comments.
I don't think we have any comments today. Item 4, oral communications. I don't have any cards. I'll move on to item 5, consent items. At A, approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held on July 20th, 2015.
We have a motion.
At this time, if the commissioners have read the minutes of the July 20th meeting, we could get a motion and a second.
I will move the motion.
I will second.
And I'll take roll call. Commissioners Asatrian?
Yes.
Watt is absent. Kalfayan?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
And President Wu?
Yes. Next item, please.
Now, item 6B, Development Impact Fee Community Outreach Meetings. At 1 is a motion to note and file report regarding the status of Development Impact Fee, DIF funds, and community outreach meetings for input on the use of these funds for park projects.
Yes, President Wu, I will make a very brief introduction on this agenda item, then I will turn it over to Ms. Alexanian to give you a report on the background and the current status and the outreach strategy related to the Development Impact Fee program. So this report is with regard to the status of the Development Impact fees. These are fees that are charged to developers, which are part of their development projects when they receive building permits from City of Glendale. Due to all of the activity in development, primarily in and around central Glendale and southern Glendale, suddenly this fee has accumulated to a very significant amount for which we need to develop a strategic plan and determine how we are best going to utilize those funds, which have to be used for development of new parks or for new park amenities that we could add to existing parks, and generally have to be connected to the general area where all of the development activity is taking place. As a result, we have embarked upon a community outreach program to try to get as much community input as we can on what the community thinks would be the best use of this funding source, as in addition to the City Council's input and the City Council's direction, as well as advice from this Commission. We will complete our community outreach on October 3rd. That will be our third and final meeting, so we plan to and hope to give you a report at the October Commission meeting on the findings and a summary of all of the input that we have received for your review and feedback and advice to the City Council, and that would be followed by a report to the City Council and a discussion by the City Council, and for the City Council to give us direction on which types of projects to program for the use of these funds. And what we're talking about is $16 million that we will have available by the end of this current fiscal year towards new parks or park projects. So with that as background, well, the other thing that occurred to me is that we had not spent much time talking about the Development Impact Fee program with the Commission, with you commissioners. And part of the reason for that was because up until this past fiscal year, it was not that significant of an amount, so we would just program it on a year-to-year basis as existing projects needed additional funding. But now it's kind of, pardon the pun, it's a different ballgame, and so we really need a well-thought-through program and strategy. So this is kind of the first step. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Alexanian.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Wu and members of the Commission. Before you, as Mr. Duran just outlined, is a note and file report regarding development impact fees and the status of the use of funds and the community outreach meetings that we have scheduled. As way of background, just wanted to give you a little bit of information. The department currently utilizes a variety of funding sources for our capital improvement projects to repair, renovate, or develop new parks or renovate existing parks and facilities. The types of funding sources that we currently use are the city's general funds, federal community development block grant funds, state grant funds, local grant funds that we might be able to get through our foundation, like the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, but mostly that's been for programming, but if we were able to get some money for maintenance as well. The special revenue funds, which are revenues that we bring in through our programming, the fees that we charge for our the services or the programs that we offer, and development impact fee funds. In the last couple of years, there's been a decrease in the amount of funding, like our general funds for capital improvement projects, but we have seen a significant spike in development impact fee funds. In 2007, Council adopted an ordinance which established a development impact fees, allowing the city to impose the fees on new residential, commercial, and industrial developments to mitigate the cost of developing new or rehabilitating existing parks and libraries. The fees consist of parks mitigation fees, library mitigation fees, and Quimby fees. The difference being that Quimby fees are collected on new residential subdivisions, while mitigation fees are collected on all other types of developments. The parks mitigation and Quimby fees are revenue for the Parks Department, which help mitigate the impact that the new developments are having in our city. So those new residents that will be coming in to live in a lot of the downtown developments, they're obviously going to be impacting our parks and libraries. So the park mitigation and Quimby fees are revenues to our department, whereas the library mitigation fee is revenue to the library department, which allows them to add to their collections or make capital improvement type improvements. The fees are split 90%, 10%, so 90% of the revenue from these fees comes to the Parks Department, whereas 10% goes to the library department. The fees currently for a residential development is about $18,000 per unit. And there's also a per square footage fee for commercial and industrial developments. So Quimby fees can be used to replace or repair existing parks or facilities or equipment, like replacing playground equipment. Quimby fees can be, revenues from Quimby fees can be used to do those types of improvements, whereas mitigation fees have to be new amenities or new development. So it's to add something new, whether it's a new park development or adding a brand new playground to an existing facility that doesn't have one, or fitness equipment, or some other, community building, so an amenity that doesn't currently exist in one of our facilities. So it's adding new features. With the increase in downtown development in Glendale, the department has seen a significant increase in development impact fee revenues in the past year, and is expecting about $12 million in revenues in the next fiscal year. So all in all, the fiscal impact section of your report breaks down how we come to the $16 million that we expect to expend over the next year, or bring in to be able to expend, appropriate, or spend in the next year. So we have about $60 million that we're expecting. So $4 million that we've already collected that hasn't been appropriated, and $12 million coming in the next fiscal year from developments that will be pulling permits. And so the developments that pay the fees, they usually pay the fee at issuance of building permit. So as a result, the city is hosting 3 community meetings to hear from the residents of our city, to hear what are the needs out there, what kind of new amenities they'd like to see, if it is a new park they'd like to see, what they'd like to see added to an existing park, or if they have ideas of what they'd like to see the department do. We strategically selected meeting locations in South and Central Glendale because that's where a majority of the development is impacting the city. So the 3 meetings that we had scheduled, one was held on September 14th, and that was held at the Adult Recreation Center. The other 2 are coming up on September 26th, which will be at Maple Community Center from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And the third one will be on October 3rd at the Pacific Community Center from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. The first meeting that was held at the Adult Recreation Center, we had about 25 people in attendance at this meeting. Exhibit 1 in your report is a copy of the PowerPoint that is being presented to the community, and the meetings are being are being run by Catherine Padilla and Associates. The department has retained their services to help us run the community meetings. So Sam Genoway from Catherine Padilla and Associates is actually the facilitator for these meetings. So the public workshops are basically to get residents to tell us about, brand new amenities that they might want to see in existing parks. For example, they might want to see more shade structures or community rooms or playgrounds. New parks, because the funds can have to be for something new. So new park ideas that they might have in South or Central Glendale if that's what they'd like to see. Or working with our partners, GUSD, to do some sort of joint use projects. Obviously, a brand new park might cost a whole lot more than adding amenities to existing facilities, and so there's you have to weigh it out and see how far do you want to take that $16 million. But these meetings are basically to get feedback from our community to be able to bring it back to you, then take it back to City Council for direction from our City Council. The public, the public outreach. So the way that we've used various means to advertise the community meetings to our public. We've had mailers, so we mailed out a letter from the city manager along with a copy of the flyer. We've had email blasts that we've done. Department and city newsletters. We've advertised it in the newsletters. Social media posts, so Facebook and Twitter. We're constantly posting and tweeting about the meetings. It's on our department's website. We've done a press release, newspaper articles. I know the Glendale News Press has done an article, and if I'm not mistaken, it was also in the CV Weekly. There's also the calendar section of the newspaper. We will be putting in it in the calendar section to try to get it out to more people for the next two meetings. GTV6 has done a banner announcement that's playing on Channel 6, and we've had flyers displayed at our community centers. Now, the letters that were mailed out, they were mailed out to 115 community contacts. And what we did is we mailed the letters to businesses and merchant associations, various chambers of commerce organizations, cultural service, social service, and athletic organizations, hospitals, homeowners associations, the department's commissions and committees, some of the department's foundations like the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, the Glendale Unified School District board members, the GCC board members, community foundations, and other youth organizations. So we've notified either the presidents or the chairs of these organizations with hopes that they're going to be dispersing it to within their organization, and then using the flyer displays at the community centers, the newspaper, the social media, the GTV6 to be able to get out to the local residents. So, for example, the Homeowners Association will then disperse to their own members, and then word of mouth hopefully will spread to everybody else. And same thing with the social service and other community organizations. So the department is doing our best to get the word out, because we really do want to hear from the residents and what they'd like to see the city do with that $16 million. Like Mr. Duran mentioned, we will be coming back to you probably sometime in October with a summary of what we've heard so far or what we've heard, I should say. At that point, the meetings will be complete. What we heard from the residents, and then we'll be taking a report back to City Council. This concludes my report. If you have any questions, be more than happy to answer.
Any comments, commissioners?
I have some questions.
Sure.
Okay. How many people were present at the first meeting?
25.
Okay. And in regards to your letters and emails, does the department do any follow-ups to the individuals that you have reached out to disseminate the information?
We haven't followed up to say, have you received it, but we will be sending out a second round of email to the same individuals as a reminder, but we haven't specifically called each individual that received the email to see if they have received it, if that's what your specific question is. But we will be doing follow-up emails that go out to the individuals.
Okay. And then in regards to the ones that are coming up, I'd love to work with staff in perhaps disseminating information on some Armenian television channels, and I know they'll be happy to take on interviews if there's anybody that would be willing to go on there and talk about these things and actually give a community report. So, and there are some local other newspapers that would benefit from
Sure.
disseminating the information.
Sure. Commissioner Satrian will be happy to work with you and take any of those recommendations that you may have.
Commissioners?
Is there any early consensus or any feedback as far as information presented from the first meeting? The feedback that you received
Feedback from the community?
from the community?
So far from what we've heard from the community, we did hear that the community does appreciate the fitness equipment that we have at some of our parks, so they'd like to see more fitness equipment. There were some residents from North Glendale that were there, and we know that Rock Haven came up as an option for development. We also heard that they do like what we've done with Riverwalk and would like to see more funds spent there, and same with Duke-Magian Wilderness Park with the Nature Education Center, so they'd like to see some of that. We've got some feedback regarding some potential mini parks. Some of the residents had some ideas of open vacant land that they thought could be developed. So there was a page full of feedback that we received from the 25 people that were in attendance, but there's all soccer fields. There was soccer fields came up a lot, and we already know just from our experience and the use of our fields that's major, but that was
Central Park, developing Central Park.
Developing Central Park.
And the partnership with the school district,
Mm-hmm.
if it's feasible. Those were the general themes from the first meeting.
I know the funds would be used for new developments, but with the community parks and the regional parks that would be outside of the area, is there any type of way to tie in transportation to be able to have an easy way for people in South and Central Glendale to reach other areas where there are park features?
The development impact fee funds do need to be spent on parks, so I don't believe it would qualify for transportation, so that's not something that we would be able to use the funds for.
I understand that the development impact fees are specified for that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to tie in either other funds or work with, for example, the B line to improve service, or pick a specific route to increase the ability to reach the different locations that are outside of the area?
Sure. Commissioner Michael, I think that there is always that possibility if there are existing funds and working with our transportation department. That's always an option if there is a need for improvement or funding to be able to do that. But as part of this study and how the funds can be used, I guess that those aren't the type of use that the funds are eligible for, but there definitely can be ways for the department to work with Public Works in looking at those options.
Yes, President Wu, Commissioner Michael, we also utilize the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, and they will provide programming funds for special projects. For example, our Youth Go program will take youth, I think it's 2 times a year or quarterly, to field trips up to Duke-Magian, and they can do the same thing for Riverwalk, but those would be programming dollars. In terms of rerouting existing transportation lines, that's a much bigger idea, which we could begin to explore with our transportation department.
Commissioner Klein? Want to say anything?
Is this money, we're able to spend it with the school district, our partners? Is that something we'll think about to build on the school system if they have empty lots or after-school programs? Mm-hmm. Is that feasible?
Yes, President Wu, Commissioner Kalfayan, if we had a school with a very large playground that the school district was interested in working with the city to convert to a public use in the evenings and the weekends, and then school use during the school day, by making improvements that would definitely qualify for development impact fee funds, because we would be creating a park or recreational amenity that currently doesn't exist. So yeah, that would be eligible.
I have a quick question. I know that from your presentation, I could definitely get a sense that it's a very comprehensive outreach, and I commend you for that and the staff. Now, do you know if we're offering any other language at the meetings? So in case we do have people that are not so comfortable with English, they could come and speak, and knowing that they will be having their voices heard and be able to get their questions answered, so they'll be able to take it back to their groups and associations and whatnot?
President Wu, we do offer, on the flyer, we do suggest that they contact us for translation, or if they do need translation, we could accommodate and have translation available. I know that some of us managers speak Armenian and Spanish, and so we are there and always readily and available to translate. But if we do know that there will be a group coming that might need translation that we might not have at the meeting, then we'll definitely accommodate. So we do advertise on the flyers that should they need translation, to please contact us and let us know that this is the language that we speak, and we'll make sure to accommodate and have somebody available. So we won't be able to have them there unless we know that they're needed.
So you said you had reached out to 115 organizations, of which 25 attended your first meeting. Will they be the same people that you're going to be inviting for the meetings that's going to be held on September 26th and October 3rd as well, or would it be a different set of organizations?
Well, the meeting, President Wu, the invites that went out were sent out to the 115 organizations, but they weren't the only ones invited. But yes, the reminders will go out to these same agencies. If there's anybody we missed, we'd be more than happy to add them to our mailers. The 25 that attended weren't necessarily all from these groups. They could have just been community residents that saw it on GTV6, so they weren't all just there from the letters that were mailed out as invites. But yes, the reminder emails that go out will go out to these 115 and anybody else that we get a recommendation for or suggestions from that we may have missed. But we try to put together a pretty comprehensive list of community organizations who then would disperse that information to their members, their residents, and hopefully be able to advertise that. But so yes, if there's anybody that we may have missed or anybody that we didn't think of, then we definitely want to include them. So everyone's invited to attend. It's not just the individuals who are invited.
Yeah, President Wu and Commissioners, if I may add, our first meeting was on a Monday night.
Yeah.
Our next two meetings are on Saturday mornings from 10 to 12, so we're hoping that we'll get better attendance on a Saturday morning. In addition to that, we probably had a 1 week notice for the first meeting because we're still ironing out the details for the planning and working with the consultants, developing the PowerPoint and the plan and the message and those kinds of things. So now with more lead time being on us and being on Saturday, hopefully we'll get bigger crowds.
I agree. Yes.
So are the flyers also in Armenian, Spanish, and Korean? I think I had brought this up during the last meeting. Is that available already, or is it just
flyers are in English, but there is a line in Armenian and I believe Spanish on there that says to contact us for translation, but the flyer itself is not translated to Armenian or English or Spanish.
I'd like to put in a request that they are translated completely. And then several years ago when we were actually working with the department on the fee, the electricity fee increases with GWP, one of the things that we did was we actually partnered with community organizations and hosted specific meetings that were noted that they were going to be, for example, in Armenian and in Spanish. I know that I assisted with the one that was in Armenian, and we had over 300 people that attended that one particular meeting, knowing that meeting was going to be ran in that language, and the outreach was done specifically to that community that has language barriers. I'd really, really like to see that replicated here, and not just with the Armenian community, but I know there is a large Spanish, Hispanic community and Korean community that needs that, and that allows for us to really get a diverse group of responses, and is very inclusive of everybody that's in this.
President Wu, Commissioners, if I could respond to that. The flyers that we are mailing out are going to the presidents of the organizations, the chairpersons of the organizations, executive directors of the nonprofit organizations. They are not going to, for example, members of the organization. So, for example, if it's an Armenian organization or a Latino organization, it's not going to the members or participants, but it's going to the executives or administrators of those organizations, and then we're relying on them to disseminate the information to their clients. We could do the translation. I just don't know that there would be anything gained unless they're disseminating the information to their clients and their participants.
I actually think that just having it be in English creates a hurdle for the community organizations, and if community members and these flyers are also posted on community centers. I know we have various community centers that service different groups, and again, I'd really think it would be worthwhile to do that. So,
President Wu, we'll translate them into Spanish and Armenian. You just brought up a good point, and that's the community centers and the public counters where participants and clients do walk in, where they could pick up a flyer without having to rely on their executive staff to disseminate. So we'll go ahead and do that.
Thank you so much.
Please include the Koreans in there as well.
I have a question. So the first meeting, the guests that we have present, they were only leaders of the communities?
No, not necessarily. No, no, there were a number of persons that I personally did not recognize as necessarily community leaders.
So it was just residents around?
I would say it was a combination, yeah.
Can I ask just one last question, and we'll move on from the people that attended. I figure we have like a register, and they will write their name and address. And do you know if there's a way for us to also maybe ask them how they heard of the meeting, so we could kind of pinpoint? Did they hear it through a organization? Did they see it on GTV? Did they see it on Glendale News Press or CV Weekly? Then we could kind of say, you know what, this is an effective way of reaching out to our community, instead of doing a full shotgun approach and then seeing we don't really know, we don't get any feedback. So if we're able to kind of gather that data, then we'll be able to have a more effective way of promoting and marketing in the future.
That's a very good suggestion.
Sure. What we could do, President, we can add a couple of columns of the common outreach methods and have them checkbox when they sign in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One exercise that we do at these meetings is as people walk in, we ask them to put a dot on a city map of where they live. And the first meeting, it was pretty representative of all of the areas of the city, so that was encouraging. So we'll continue that, but you're right, in addition to how they heard about this meeting, so that we'll know for the next time what's the most effective way of getting to folks. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Do you need a motion on this?
Yes, we do. Any further discussions or comments, Commissioners? Seeing none, we would actually need a motion for the Development Impact Fee Community Outreach Meetings to note and file the report regarding the status of the Development Impact Fee. You have a motion?
I move the motion to note and file report regarding the status of Development Impact Fee.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Commissioners Asatrian?
Yes.
Fuad is absent. Kalfayan?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
President Wu?
Yes. Next item, please.
Next is item 6C, snack bar rental fee for approved community youth groups. At 1 is a resolution establishing a new snack bar rental fee at various parks by community youth groups.
President Wu, members of the Commission, if I might do a very brief introduction and then introduce Gabrielle Golia. One of the Commission's primary responsibilities per city ordinance is to review and approve all fees charged by the Commissioners and Parks Department. In our system, we do have 6 available snack bars connected with our baseball facilities. However, only 3 are currently being operated, and they're operated under a lease agreement, a very formal 10 or 15-page lease agreement. And what we want to do is we want to convert those lease agreements to make it part of the facility use permit, kind of an attachment to make it easier for us to administer and easier for the youth groups to run the snack bars and to report the revenues and the like. Right now, under lease agreement, they're required to pay a percentage of their revenues to the city in addition to a rental fee, and we'd like to simplify that and charge a flat $100 a month rate to the approved youth groups. And so that's the essence of what we're asking the Commission to review and approve today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gabrielle.
Good afternoon, President Wu, members of the Commission. I'm Gabrielle Golia. I'm the Community Services Supervisor at the Glendale Sports Complex, and part of the area that I supervise is the citywide field rentals and the snack bar contracts that are associated with those. I'm here today to recommend that the Commission approve a resolution establishing a new fee for the rentals of the snack bars, as Mr. Duran gave you an overview of. The snack bars, there is one snack bar at the Glendale Sports Complex, and the small concession stands at a number of parks are almost snack shacks. They're very small little concession stands, and they're located at Babe Herman, Shoal Canyon, Dunsmore, Montrose, and Pacific ball fields. These small snack concession stands have traditionally been operated by the youth groups who rent the fields. They are operated during their season of play. The snack bars are really unable to support any kind of operations on a year-round basis because it's just a snack bar that's located right at a baseball field. So the teams and the leagues run the snack bars as a means to raise a little bit of extra revenue to support their operations, help the kids buy uniforms, help pay for umpires and their main overall operating expenses. During their season of play, they do not pay a fee to the city in order to use the fields. The fields are free. The only thing that they have paid to us during their season of play traditionally is the rental of the snack bar. The contracts have traditionally been approximately 15% of their gross profits that are paid to us annually. That can range anywhere from $500 to about $1,000 per site. Only 3 sites have been run annually. It was Montrose, the Sports Complex, and Pacific. And our overall revenue from snack bars annually is about $2,000. So it's not a significant amount of money overall in the enterprise fund, and that was their percentages that they're paying to us. So in an attempt to simplify this for the leagues, every year we go through this exhaustive process where we're getting contracts signed and going back and forth and with our legal department making sure that everything is in order. We have suggested that we charge a monthly rent. Based on the number of months that the youth leagues are renting the facilities, we anticipate that the revenue will be approximately the same. Montrose will rent it for approximately 5 to 6 months. The youth group at Pacific is the same, 5 to 6 months during their season of play, and the sports complex is year-round. So between all of those, we anticipated about $2,000 to $2,100 in revenue. So about the same amount of money. We also think that with this change, it will allow AYSO to get into the mix if they choose to do so. In previous years, they've never requested to do so. They have stated to me that they're not really in the snack bar operations. However, by allowing the youth group that is using that field as their home field for the season, it would allow AYSO to get into the mix if they chose to do so during their fall season. The policy that we're proposing would allow the youth groups who use the field as their home field during the season of play, which is the same groups that are already using it. So this wouldn't change who's running the snack bars. This wouldn't change how they're running the snack bars. It just gives a different rate to the youth groups so that it's a flat fee. We did include in here a policy and disclaimer attached for your information. The presentation today is for the fee itself. We are working with our legal department currently to finesse that policy and disclaimer a little bit. We wanted to attach it for your information and your review. And I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Commissioners?
No questions.
You did a very good job of explaining the first question I had, which was to clarify that the finances would be about the same. So to simplify a process and keep the revenues the same, that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been agendized as an action item. We are asking that the commission approve a resolution establishing the new snack bar rental fee.
Actually,
Sure.
what percent of groups are actually using this, and how many? What's the percentage of the groups that are actually using the snack bars altogether?
The percentage of the groups using the fields that are actually operating
Right.
snack bars, I would have to count that really quickly. I'm sorry. It's approximately, I want to say about 30% of the groups. Shoal Ball Field is not currently used. The snack bar is not in an operable condition, so it's not currently being used. And Babe Herman Field is available to the youth groups to use, and they've opted not to use it. So they're choosing to just stay out of the mix. And Dunsmore is the same situation. Babe Ruth Little League is able to use the Dunsmore snack bar, and they're choosing not to use it. So some of the parks are remaining inoperable or closed during the seasons because the groups just don't want to put the funding towards using it themselves.
Okay.
So I will move the resolution establishing a new snack bar rental fee at various parks by community youth groups.
I'll second.
Commissioner Sasatrian?
No.
Quad is absent. Kalfayan?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
President Wu.
Yes.
Item 7, reports information only at A Youth and Family Services Annual Report.
Good afternoon, President Wu, members of Commission. My name is Walter Alvarez. I am the Supervisor for the Youth and Family Services Program, and I'm here today to present our annual review on the program. The Youth and Family Services Program is a program that was developed back in 2001 in an effort to align ourselves with our mission of providing human services to our residents. The program has, I'll give you an overview of the program. It has 5 components. One of the components is youth outreach, case management, information and referrals, newly developed JUST program, which stands for Juvenile Ultimatum Services Training. And the final component is a teen drop-in recreation community engagement program, which has been one of our growing components of our program currently. The program is run out of Pacific Community Center. It operates Monday through Friday from the hours of 8:30 to 5:30 with the flexibility of staying after hours based on the needs of the residents and the youth and the parents. The program's main purpose is to target at-risk youth and families who are in need of social services by identifying them either through school, through the attendance review board. Our staff participates with the Glendale Unified School District attendance review board. We also partner with the probation officers at local high schools, which is at the 3 high schools, Glendale, Hoover, and and also Crusader Valley. So a lot of the referrals are generated through there. And also with our collaboration with the Pasadena Juvenile Court, anytime there's any Glendale cases, if kids are identified as risk or high risk, the court will directly refer them to us. The JUST program, Juvenile Ultimatum, is a community services program. What we discovered is that a lot of our Glendale kids who were being assigned or mandated to comply with community service were being by our Glendale court here across the street, they were being referred to areas outside our cities, El Monte, MTA, to go out and remove graffiti. We realized that, well, that's not a service for our kids. They should stay in our community. So what we developed was this JUST program. And it's not, we call it JUST because it's not just community services. It's really a restorative program, restorative justice, community engagement program. Basically, when the kids go to Glendale Community Court, we became members of their referral list, and they refer them to us, and we keep them in our community and work through their issues through case management. So again, our goal is to just address the issues that our kids are having in our community, a holistic approach, working with our community partners, our social service agencies, nonprofits. If we don't provide if we don't provide case management to the youth, we'll refer them to agencies outside the community. Sometimes kids don't have a myriad of issues that we need to address. If it's case management, we'll identify maybe 3 to 4 issues that our staff will conduct intake assessment. We identify 4 issues. We'll work with the kids and engage them in case management services, meaning maybe they need to improve their grades, complete community service, or simply engage in community. Maybe some parents say, my kid's not involved in anything. He's just staying home playing video games all day. Well, that's what we work with the kids and try to link them to recreation, which is great for us because we are in the business of it already. So that's why we say that one is growing. We've provided a teen drop-in center every other Friday. We provide resources to the youth just to kind of come out and engage, talk to role models, adults. Sometimes these kids have a lack of adult leaders or adult mentors that aren't talking to them or just aren't talking to them enough. With the Teen Drop-In, we also work with certain agencies in the community like Glendale Communitas Initiative. We've worked with Didi Hirsch. We've partnered with a lot of faith-based organizations as well to come out on Friday, every other Friday, and have them bring their members also into our Teen Drop-In. And we've grown in numbers, and again, it's just an opportunity for families to get together, kids to get together, and engage in positive activities. Our goal is that when the kids are engaged in the activities that our staff have programmed, the parents, this is our follow-up plan to that, is for them to be participating in workshop, informational resources, and informing them of community services as well. I'd like to give you an idea of the numbers we've been able to meet this year in our Teen Drop-In, for example, which consists of recreation program. It's not just Teen Drop-In come out and play, but there is dodgeball. We put together basketball competitions for the kids and also the Teen Drop-In component. And we've served 1,768 duplicated kids within the program through those services. The JUST program, we had 11 unduplicated youth participate through the educational workshop, which we call our community engagement, working with partners to educate the community, the youth. We had 78 duplicated youth participate. We offered a total of 6 informational workshops. Through case management, we serviced 12 unduplicated youth. Of those 12, we met our goal of 100%, which kids completed their whole entire case plan and meeting each of their outlined goals within 3 to 6 month time frame for each of the kids. And our services and resources referrals, We generated a total of 136 referrals. 109 of those were successfully utilized because our staff does follow up with the service providers to find out if they actually attended their service or got linked to the service. It's not just about providing them a number and say, here, call this or call this number and someone will help you. Our staff will do the legwork behind the scenes. When the parents are at work and they need the service, our staff will call, get a name, get an appointment, and let the parent or the youth know who they need to meet up with and who they need to make contact with to get the service needed. Again, it's a direct linkage referral. It's not just a number. And so that's what we accomplished this year. Again, I think it's a very successful program. It's been around for years. We did take a hit back in 2008. And so we kind of modified and we morphed into doing the recreation component, realizing that there is a tie-in with that. Kids a lot of times just need something to do, not just stay home. Just give them something and they'll engage. And I think with linking them to positive role models, adults in the community, they'll make improvements. So if you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them right now.
Good job.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your
much.
time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Item 7B is Citywide Sports Annual Report.
Good afternoon again. I'm here now to speak to you about the citywide sports programs. The sports complex operates a variety of programs. We operate the aquatics program at 6 wading pools, Pacific Pool, and the skate park, as well as the sports complex operations itself, and then we have the citywide component. We report separately on the pools and the skate park and the sports complex. So today I'm here to give you a brief overview of what we do with citywide sports. We have 12 youth fields in the Glendale area, and we handle all of the reservations of those 12 youth baseball fields, including the snack bar oversight, coordination with our maintenance department, scheduling the lights, and renting the fields out when the youth groups aren't using them. We also oversee the tennis vendor contracts at 3 sites, and we have the Adult Basketball League and sports contract classes for both youth and adults. Our contract class program for sports only is a popular program. In the 2014-15 fiscal year, we generated over $58,000 in contract classes. We had a badminton program, adult volleyball, adult and youth tennis classes, and youth soccer. Overall, we showed an improvement in many of our programs this year. We had seen a decline in participation over a couple of years, and just recently we've been seeing numbers going back up. Badminton has become very popular lately. We utilize the Glendale Community College gym, and they just completed some construction over there, and the gym lights are significantly improved. So our badminton club has asked their participants to come back to our program and participate again more there on Monday nights. Our tennis classes are also up by about 26% this year. We have a new instructor, and we think that his enthusiasm and his recruitment of students is helping with our participation go up. Youth volleyball is up by 31%. It's a relatively new program. We've only been doing it for about 3 to 4 years, and it's really catching on. We're getting a lot of calls from middle school and young high school age students, the parents of those students wanting to come and be a part of our program. Our youth soccer is down a little bit, but we've noticed that there has been an increase at the sports complex of rentals by summer camps and private club organizations that are renting and running their own youth programs. So we think we're competing with a lot of the private groups, and that the kids are still playing soccer. They're just not in our program. And overall, that's still a benefit to the kids. So we're pleased to see how many kids are out there playing soccer. It's really booming as a program. Our citywide field rentals are a very large part of the citywide operations. We have what's called an approved community youth group. Those are groups that get to use the fields free of charge during their season of play. They have to have 60% youth from the Glendale Unified School District, and they have to be a nonprofit organization that does not limit participation in their organization at all. So we feel that those are the groups that are serving the youth here in Glendale. And from February through July, baseball and softball groups get to use the fields for free. And from August through January, soccer groups get to use the fields for free. After those approved community youth groups have their permits, we will rent the fields out to other groups. If it's off-season for one of our groups, they pay the nonprofit rate at that point in time. Rentals brought in approximately a little over $34,000 in 2014 and 15 to this budget. Our general fund costs in citywide sports is $146,095. Enterprise fund costs are a little over $238,000. And our enterprise fund revenue is just shy of $150,000. We do see a loss in this program. The loss is recouped from the profit that's realized annually in the enterprise fund. Overall, enterprise operation realizes an annual profit despite losses in this program, and we've decided that the citywide fields being offered for free to the youth groups and other programs that are being run are valuable, and so we fill in the gap there from sports complex operations. I'm available for any questions you might have.
If I may,
Yes, please.
how many soccer fields do we have around here in Glendale?
We have 3. We have 2 full-size fields at the Glendale Sports Complex. They weren't included in this operation because they're sports complex. And then we have a smaller field at Pacific Community Center, which is reported on in the Pacific report every year. But not a lot of...
Pacific is small one, or it's a regular field? Small.
It's small.
That's all we have.
Dedicated soccer. AYSO does use the outfield of all of our baseball fields during the fall. So we provide them with grass to play on because they have approximately 3,500 kids enrolled in their program. So we make sure to meet their needs.
So that's in need for sure, it looks like. Okay.
Thank you for all the great work.
Thank you. Yeah.
With the concessions that we discussed earlier, there's $19,300 in revenue on this report. Can you go into a little more detail and explain the differences and where that is?
Absolutely. The concessions in this report actually includes the tennis concessions at our tennis sites. So the discrepancy in that number, the larger number here, comes from the monthly rent and a percentage of net profits that our tennis concessionaires are paying us primarily in this report out of Glorietta Tennis Court and Fremont Tennis Courts. So this is a large figure that encompasses all concessions, including the 2,000 or so that comes in from the snack bars.
Do the concessionaires across all of the city's parks follow the same flat fee structure, or is it a different fee structure?
No, we went out for a competitive bid at it was an RFP at the tennis courts just recently for Glorietta and Fremont, and the vendors came back to us with a suggestion of what they would pay to us. They are under contracts right now that just began at Glorietta it began in March, and at Fremont it began in June, I believe. They pay a monthly rent, a flat monthly rent, plus a percentage of their net profits. So it's a little bit different.
And with regard to the new tennis contracts, we should see increased revenues based on the contracts that we just signed. So next year you'll see it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Item 7C, homeless point in time count.
President Wu, again, if I may give a brief introduction, this is along the lines of the human service theme as part of today's meeting. But as part of our human service mission, the Community Services and Parks Department is responsible for administering homeless programs and coordinating homeless services in the city of Glendale. Each year, the city receives about $2.5 million in federal funds, which it distributes to service providers. So we contract with service providers to provide homeless services. And as a condition of receiving these federal funds, no less than once every 2 years, the city is required to conduct a homeless point-in-time count so that we can validate the needs in our community. So Yvette Sanvelian serves as the city's homeless coordinator. So she is here to give you the annual or biannual point-in-time report.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. President Wu, members of the Commission, my name is Yvette Sanvalian. I oversee the homeless programs as part of the Community Services and Parks Department, and this is my first presentation before some of you are new to the Commission or I'm new to you. So, as Mr. Duran mentioned, the City of Glendale competes for about $2.3 million as part of the federal funding to provide homeless services as part of our department. One of the requirements of this funding source is for the City of Glendale Continuum of Care to conduct biannual homeless assessments needs survey. And the reason of the homeless assessments needs is to identify a number of homeless persons in the City of Glendale on a specific night, a.m. to basically from 12 a.m. to about 7 a.m. in the morning, as to how many homeless are unsheltered and sheltered in the City of Glendale. Last year, the city completed its homeless count on January 28, 2015. The federal government requires that a specific type of population be included in the homeless count, and that includes individuals who have no place to stay, that's anywhere that's unmeant for human habitation, on the streets, in their cars, not doubled up with any family members. Also, folks in emergency shelters or transitional housing are also considered homeless. The city also oversees 93 permanent housing supportive units as part of the Continuum of Care application. These are formerly homeless who have graduated from the streets to housing while they're being serviced and provided services throughout the year with homeless services. They're not counted in terms of homeless individuals in the City of Glendale. As indicated earlier, this year, we're preparing for future years, June 28, we identified 208 unduplicated homeless persons in the city, and this compares to 318 in 2013. Of the 208, we have identified 122 persons who were unsheltered and 86 persons who were sheltered. The 86 persons were persons in emergency shelter and transitional housing, and 122 persons were sleeping in places unmeant for human habitation. Of the subpopulation, and there's a full report for you that has a lot of details. If you have specific questions at the end of the presentation, I'll be able to answer them. But we had identified 59% of the population as individuals, and 41% were persons in families. Of the 208 adults, we had 44 children under age of 18. These are children that are with members in families, not unaccompanied youth in the City of Glendale. And we had identified a total of 164 persons between the ages of 18 to 64, and 9% of 62 years of age and older. This is a significant decrease from our 2013 homeless count. And I can discuss a little bit later through the presentation as to the reasons why we've seen some decreases and increases in certain populations in the City of Glendale. One of the characteristics that the federal government provides and requests for the continuum of care is to identify those persons who are defined as chronically homeless. And the HUD defines chronically homeless as anyone who's unaccompanied adult who is disabled or has a disability condition, and who has been homeless for at least a year and or have at least 4 episodes within past 3 years. Those folks are typically those individuals who have other conditions, including mental health or substance abuse, and often deters them to access services due to their conditions. And the longer they stay on the streets, the longer their transition to housing becomes difficult. In order for the federal government and the city to compete successfully, the federal government requires continuum of cares to focus on chronic homeless individuals and families and work through housing first approaches in order to get them into housing quickly. And with that said, Some of the population that we are dealing with that are unsheltered in the city of Glendale have specific needs such as chronic mental illness, substance abuse, combination of both. Some of the population we deal with are either fleeing domestic violence and or in need of services. The folks that are running away for DV, they are referred through YWCA. We have a year-round shelter in the city of Glendale. We also have a year-round shelter for general population in the city for 40 beds that's operated through Essentia. And about 2% of our population were identified as having AIDS or HIV positive. And as a result of those participants, we work with Pasadena's AIDS Services Center to coordinate services in Pasadena. And 4%, 6 of our adults are identified veterans in the city of Glendale. Nationwide, the National Alliance to End Homelessness had reported overall decrease in the percent of homeless population, specifically in the chronic homeless individuals and chronic homeless families. And these are mainly the reasons as to the federal government issuing specific pots of funding that are tied specifically for chronic homeless individuals and families and have special subpopulations, including veterans and substance abuse and mentally ill. And therefore, the city of Glendale, in the next couple of slides, it's a little bit difficult to see on the screen, but you have it in your report. The city of Glendale has decreased overall homelessness by 35% between 2013 to 2015. In terms of chronic homeless persons, the city of Glendale has decreased the population 46%. So in 2013, we had 127 chronic homeless individuals, and in 2015, we identified 69. Several reasons tied to our successful decrease in working with the chronic homeless population is that the city received funding for permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless. And as a result, the city coordinates with landlords in the community, identifies the clients through our outreach and homeless services agencies. Clients are placed in permanent housing first, and then all the services, the wraparound services, are brought to the clients while they're in housing. That means connecting the clients into permanent housing, connecting clients to employment and services, mental health services, employment if applicable, or other mainstream resources to increase their income and to be able to sustain their housing once they're placed.
Yvette, and that's the 93 units of permanent housing?
So total, we have 93 units in our inventory. We typically apply for about 15 additional units every year and have been successful receiving some of the funding depending our need in the community. And so yes, on an annual basis, we're able to put in about between 5 to 10 new units, and then any turnover units, unfortunately, due to clients passing away or no longer interested in the program, or even sometimes successful graduations to independent housing, we're able to fill those vacancies with turnover units with our new participants. And so the next is our veterans population. City of Glendale had identified 23 veterans in 2013, and we had identified 6 veterans in 2016. I apologize, 2015. So that's a variance of 74%. I would also inform the Parks Commission that as part of the federal strategy with opening doors, federal government has imposed on continuum of cares to end veteran homelessness by end of 2015, which is our goal to end veterans homelessness in the city of Glendale. In terms of manageable programming, when we apply for units that are targeted for veterans, we go back to our registry and identify the veterans that we have counted in January and work with placing them in permanent housing. And that's sort of how it works in terms of service delivery in the city of Glendale. So what's next steps in terms of our continuum of care? Historically, the continuum of care was to provide outreach and get people in emergency shelters, then transitional housing, then permanent housing. There has been a paradigm shift in how the federal government sees in addressing the needs of homelessness in each city. The Department of HUD has imposed on condominiums to move away from that process and focus on permanent housing and rapid rehousing. So permanent housing first models is to work with clients from the streets, get the clients into permanent housing, provide the services. Those are for all those chronically homeless individuals who really need the support, the intensive services to be able to maintain their housing and be able to pay their rent on time and be integrated back to the community. The rapid rehousing component is for first-time homeless individuals who are homeless in the city of Glendale who have lost their income or some significant situation has happened in their household. They lost their unit. Now they really quickly can get back on their feet. They just need a support. A 1 month security deposit or 1 month rent is what's paid to get them back from streets to housing quickly, and then they're able to maintain their housing without a lot of intensive case management. And so as the trend, there are decreases in nationwide due to our improvements in how we have been dealing with homeless services delivery in terms of housing first and rapid rehousing models. However, we do still need and would need to coordinate with the housing developers and our housing departments to coordinate with any and affordable housing in the city of Glendale, as we do need landlords to partner with the city to be able to provide those units that they own for us to have our homeless clients and participants in their units, while the case management is being provided from our nonprofit organizations. And finally, one of the other requirements is that the continuum had to implement what's called a coordinated entry system, where in the city of Glendale, Essentia, a nonprofit organization who handles homeless services, is our coordinated entry. And that means every individual who is currently homeless has to go through Essentia. An official intake is completed through Essentia. The participants are assessed and given a priority ranking based on their needs, and housing providers are able to match their available units to the folks that are on a waiting list with Essentia. You can imagine that we don't have as many units in the city for all of our unsheltered population, so our high vulnerable clients who could potentially die on the streets are prioritized for housing first, and we sort of work through that system in successfully transitioning some of our clients into housing from streets. And some of the recommendations I touched on a little bit regarding the opening doors and our ability to work with the population in order to successfully compete for the funding on an annual basis and justify to HUD, yes, while we still have 208 homeless in 2015, we are making a big progress in reducing veteran homelessness, and we have committed so through specific type of funding. We are committed to housing first approaches, although that takes a lot of coordination between the city, the nonprofit organization, and all the service providers in the community to be able to provide that service to the clients. To be able to end chronic homelessness by 2020, which is HUD's deadline. And also, the third recommendation was to continue to operate rapid rehousing programming for non-chronically homeless individuals in the city of Glendale, and continue to partner with the landlords and possibly provide some incentives for landlords to be able to work with the city and the nonprofits in housing of the homeless individuals. Concluding my presentation, on an annual basis, we apply for the funding through the federal government, and that funding supports an access center that's in the city of Glendale that serves about 1,000 homeless individuals in the city, the emergency shelters, case management services, and our permanent housing units of 93 and growing, and one transitional housing that serves for our domestic violence survivors in the city of Glendale. And so our funding application to the federal government would be submitted to HUD by November, and these statistics and needs assessment will be utilized to request for additional funding to support the gap that we have in our community in terms of homeless services. That's my presentation. If you have any questions, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Please.
How many homeless do you shelter at Essentia?
Essentia is a 40-bed shelter, and clients are staying there between 90 to 120 days. And they are assigned a case manager depending on their specific needs, and case management staffs work with clients to exit to the next level of service, whether it's transitional housing or permanent housing.
Are there any requirements if they're addicts or other, if they're addicts, would you accept them?
President Wu, Commissioner Kalafian, Essensia's emergency shelter targets for homeless persons and families, and there is a criteria for testing, clean, and so those individuals who test positive are programmed. The shelter will not accept the clients in our shelter. However, we have case management staff that are specialized in veterans services, mental health, substance abuse, and so they work specifically with the detox programming and make a referral to the client to the detox programming. Once the clients are clean and sober and they return to Essentia, then we go ahead and serve the participants through our programming. So that's the emergency shelter. What the federal government is saying is that while you may have an emergency shelter in your community, the population that may not be able to get into the shelter is the chronic homeless with the substance abuse or mental health. You need to work with that population, get them in housing. And so Housing First is really working with the most chronic homeless, 10 or 15 years on the streets with severe mental illness and substance abuse, get them to housing, and then connect all the services to that client. And so we're addressing with that population with the Housing First models.
You have a difficult job. Can we go back to the first picture that you showed us?
Yes.
Yeah. The picture in the middle that you are with the person there?
Yes.
So this person, I see him around.
Yes.
He doesn't come to shelter, or?
So this participant has been chronically homeless in the city of Glendale for 15 years. We have worked with him on 2 different programming levels in terms of permanent housing. On both occasions, the participant decides to leave the program voluntarily. And so, as such, staff and agencies who are working with participants at that level will not mandate the participant to stay in housing. If they leave voluntarily, then we have to vacate the unit in order to sustain the funding, find someone else to work with him. The participant on the left picture is also chronically homeless and severely mentally ill and substance abuse, and so he constantly is connected to different detox programming and chooses to leave those programming with not completing. Therefore, it's a little bit hard to work with him, although outreach continues to seek out every day and try to still offer services. That's part of our job in Essentia, is to continue to seek chronic homeless individuals like this gentleman in the picture, is to offer the services, and hopefully they have change of heart. And we have units for people in his situation where we will continue to take them back to program as long as they're willing to participate.
So it is a difficult job, and the reality is we try over and over and over again with certain individuals until hopefully one day, something will actually stick.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Michaels? I would just like to say thank you very much for a comprehensive report. I do want to ask you, I know that we saw a vast decline from 2013 number of veterans to 2015, and I think that's great that we are able to service our veterans and give them the aid that they so deserve. And the 6 veterans that you located in this 2015, are we doing anything for them as far as like helping them with some skill training, some job training, employment opportunities, so they could take the appropriate next steps? And what can we do to offer them services that kind of go beyond our regular clients, if you will?
President Wu, that's a great question. For the 6 individuals who are veterans, they are active clients of Essentia receiving case management. Those who are able to work are connected with the employment specialist, and those who are on disability, permanent disability, are working with the case manager who deals with mainstream benefits. And so they are working with them at different levels depending on the type of person which veteran we're looking at, and they are identified for housing units. And so we have 3 currently of the 6 that would potentially get housed by the end of next month. If any of you may know that landlords who are willing to work with the city to partner to end veteran homelessness by the end of this year, please communicate with our staff and with us. We would be happy to work with those landlords. And then the other 3 are working with the VASH program. That's a federally funded program through the Veterans Administration. The city does not receive VASH funding. However, we coordinate the services with the department that receives it in order to place the clients in the program. In terms of the VASH program, that's specifically for veterans who are discharged honorably.
Thank you.
We are building Veterans House in Glendale, right? Is that connected to us?
President Wu, Commissioner Kalafian, yes, the housing department is building veterans housing, and the process is that anytime there's a new development, the housing department coordinates with the continuum of care. Staff from our organizations submit applications or on behalf of our applicants, and they go through the screening process, and they are advocated to be able to connect and receive the units if they qualify for the certain number of units or the bed or the units or the funding that they have for City of Glendale.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is item 7D, monthly activity reports at One Park Services.
Good afternoon, President Wu, members of the Commission. This month's monthly activity report will be reporting on 2 months, as a matter of fact, July and August. Combined, we completed 388 work orders for non-routine demand work. In the month of July was 163, with the groundskeeper completing 96 work orders, the pesticide applicator completing 27, and the irrigation crew 40 work orders, for total labor hours of 455. And for the month of August, we're 225 work orders, 164 by groundskeepers, 7 by pesticide application, and irrigation crew of 54. Total labor hours 575. Between the transition of the month of July and August, we lost our hourly city worker who was doing our pesticide application to retirement. Hence, you will see a drop in the pesticide application numbers for the next couple of months. Until we recruit again, the goal is to have another individual on board on an hourly basis, sometime in July, maybe late July, to have us, keep up with our application of pesticides and dealing with herbicides and pests in our buildings and out in the fields. As Ms. Golia indicated, that ball fields were one of the topics that she covered. One of the things you could imagine is the demand that we have on the fields for use, whether it be for soccer and baseball, because some of the outfields are also used by our youth groups for soccer as well. So what it does for us, the most challenging thing of our operation is to make sure we get those fields renovated and safe for the kids again. But we have a very, very short window of opportunity to do so. And we have to coordinate very closely with Gabrielle's crew at the sports complex to take some fields down to be able to allow for the renovation. And in some cases, when we're sodding or seeding, allow a little bit longer time so that the seed or the sod can root properly and thus be able to extend the life of the field until the next time we renovate. We have a couple of items to report on. One of the projects I'd like to report was conducted at City Hall at the entrance to the Perkins northern section. And this was the planter bed area to the entrance. We had been doing an annual replacement of some flowers here. This time we went a different route. This is just the planter bed ready for the planting. What we do typically is identify the species of plants and have it laid out by a supervisor as to how they like to see it done. This is kind of the design for the layout for the landscape. And we have our gardeners do their typical planting process. Of course, it involves digging, installing, covering. And when we are completed, this is what we have as the final outlook. We've done a number of projects, more recently working over at the Montrose Shopping Park at the landscaping, the areas that we removed the turf and had to go draw to our landscaping. Rather than going into a lot of landscaping, I wanted to cover some of the ball field renovation projects that were completed the past couple of months. The first one, there we go. The first one I'd like to highlight is Montrose Park. Montrose, as you know, it has two fields. The one highlighted is the Little League, which gets the most use, and our Little Leagues use it and has the turf infield. Requires a lot of care to keep the turf infield going. And then the one just south of it is our large field, which in the next coming year will also be renovated. The process includes, obviously, taking the fields down for the renovation. Most of the time, it's just the outfield. We'll do the aerating, which is kind of putting in the holes in the turf to allow it to breathe better and extends life of the turf. And we seed and fertilize. And also annually on the infield does require a little bit of work, what we call the key, right around the mounds, the pitching mounds, especially if it is for baseball. It does get a lot of wear and tear. And what we call the key, and I have a better picture later on to show you the key, from the pitching mound all the way straight across to where the home base is, that whole key, we remove the turf and we replace it. We replace the sod, because that gets the most tear of where the players and the pitcher and players will come in. First task would be to remove the existing turf. And one of the challenges I have also, getting my guys to actually take pictures while they're working to be able to show you a better picture of the job. Unfortunately, a lot of times I'm not successful because they're focusing on the job. But I do have pieces of project in the different fields that you'll be able to see. And this is a completed resod of the key and the Montrose infield. Of course, the perimeter was also seeded. You see the lines are cut out to make it ready for the fields, and it was turned over to the sports crews right when it was due, within a specific timeline. I commend my guys for conducting this. As you note, the fields are very lush, very beautiful green when we turn it over, and part of the wear and tear will give it back to us the following year for redo. And while we're doing this, we also do the perimeter, not only just their areas, but also the bullpens to get them ready leveled, because the pitchers get to practice here before they get their turns to be able to get on the field. So each field we do the field, we also will be doing the bullpens and get it ready for the kids. And this was the one at Montrose. The next, here's a shot from far out. It doesn't do it justice. Next time I'll try and get an aerial for you folks to give a better view of what it looks like from the sky. Babe Herman is another facility that was not on our schedule, yet my guys felt it was very necessary to do because the infield required some good love and TLC. And this one, not only did they do the key, they replaced the entire infield. So removing all the sod and hauling all the dirt away, leveling it off. And this is, you see the infield is completely, the sod is completely gone in this location. And after leveling it, putting the appropriate amendments ready for it to be seeded, cutting out the lines appropriately, adjusting all the irrigation so it covers only the appropriate areas. Again, working on the bullpen areas, which in this field is just off to the side and not separate from the field. We have again, this is right before the irrigation, before the installation of the sod. The amendments put in on the running tracks, the warning tracks. And here it is, all sodded, complete new sod. And this is what Babe Herman looked like before we turned it over for its use. As you know, anytime you have a brand new sod, it looks very, very beautiful. The upper shoal fields, we did fields 2, which is the one highlighted, and then also field 3, the one just to, I guess, the southwest of it. The infield in field 2 is not used for baseball, so it doesn't have sod. It is only just the brick dust. But we had to bring in a specialist to do laser leveling to allow for the field to be more lush and safer that way. We get it all done. The water will drain at the appropriate locations. And most of these fields that we do major renovations does require an outside contractor to come in and laser level, and then we come in and do the final touch-ups. In this case, there's not a lot of turf that had to be done in the infield. However, the perimeter, we had to cut out the perimeter arc, and also some areas on the outfield, you'll notice that we had cut out the turf and just replaced sod in areas that was very, very well worn out. The fact that these fields also get used for soccer tends to wear out the outfield more than just simply baseball. So it does make the job a little tougher, but more fun at the same time. These are some pictures while it was being grounded, the infield areas. I don't have a picture of the laser level, unfortunately, be able to show you that job. This is an area out in the outfield that we ripped the existing sod because it was very poorly was very badly damaged, I should say. And this one area we actually brought inside and we installed it ourselves. They're kind of carpets, we just lay out and have it covered, that one area, and seeded the rest. So by the time we're done, the entire field will look like it has been given good attention and be more or less a very nice overall field turf coverage. And this is, once it was leveled and the guys finished the infield and ready to go to be turned over, a shot from home plate out, and again, from the opposite direction, looking at the home base. And this is, again, field 2, the area that we had sodded and seeded the rest of it. You see it's kind of started to grow in, and it looks more uniform as far as the turf in the outfield goes. And of course, field 3, the infield had to be redone. Again, starts with the irrigation adjustments, fencing off the infield to allow for the work to be done. This is one where we ended up having the contractor come in, not only laser leveling contractor, we also have a contract with a sod manufacturer. They come in, they install. What they do is the large 100-foot rolls of sod that they come in, it's a lot easier to just lay it right off the bat and have it installed. And there's different versions, spots of the job. They're doing the arc right around the baseball, the pitcher's mound right there. And you will see it's an equipment, the machine that comes in, the turf is laid right inside, and it just, somebody is driving it, the other guys will tear off the netting to make sure. We've noticed in the past we used to just lay the sod with the netting on the back, but once the turf wears out, we notice the netting starts kind of popping up, could be safety hazard, so now we make sure that we remove the netting before the sod is installed to make it safer. And our guys, you can see some of our guys in the mix working hand in hand with the contractor to get the job completed in time. And this is a roller. Once we lay the sod, we actually have it, the equipment go over it, kind of compresses it and puts it more in place. That's where they're removing the netting. And once the sod is laid out, somebody will push it in to make sure we don't have any gaps in the turf between the two areas. Again, rolling and completely installed and being irrigated. And here's a shot of it, again, being irrigated, but a complete renovation. And this is field number 3. All in all, this year, we completed a number of fields. Some, what we refer to as TLC, there's not a lot of heavy labor done, which is mostly aerating, fertilizing, and letting the field rest. Of course, seeding, and letting the field rest for about a month or so. A number of fields were completed that way this year. Brand, including one. Montrose outside of the key was also aerated and seeded. We also have a number of projects coming. These are still the pictures from Field 3. Next will be Pelanconi Park, Pacific Park, and sports complex field number 1, whereas the infield now is currently just brake dust, and we want to convert it to be allowing the baseball play on it. So we will be taking that field down for a couple of months also to be able to sod the infield to allow for baseball play. And Pelanconi will be a complete redo of the irrigation, the entire irrigation system, a new design, new installation. And we will come back to Pelanconi following year to do the field, the infield and the outfield. Given the number of fields we have left and the scheduling conflicts we have with the user groups and Gabrielle to be allowed to fields to go down, we postponing Pelanconi's major work for following year, and we'll be doing the major irrigation renovation at that site this year. Pacific Park will do the general TLC, take the field down, seed, aerate, fertilize, and allow about a month and a half for it to rest. And then, again, sports complex coming December, January. So between November and January, we'll have 3 more fields to renovate. And that essentially concludes the presentation I had.
Thank you. Seems like it was a lot of work. Any comments, commissioners?
Work.
Credit goes to the guys
Yes.
again. I get to sit here and look good, but they do the job for us.
Do a great job of looking good there. I mean, just one quick comment. I mean, my son played through CVLL ever since from T-ball all the way up to major when he finally moved on when he was 12. So I know, having spent hours and days of my spring and summer there, Montrose Park is where we played, and everyone knew there was a Montrose hop. So every time we had the field get sodded and all that, everyone was so excited, but then give it a couple of weeks and it gets all torn up. But yeah, you guys do a great job. I can attest to that.
Thank you, President Wu.
Thank you. Next, please.
7D2, Recreation and Community Services.
Okay, President Wu, members of the Commission, in your packets you'll find monthly activity report for recreation. We had a few community events the last few months. On July 14th, we had Walk and Rollers presented a bike skills and pedestrian safety workshop to our day campers at Pacific Community Center. We had about 120 campers that went through education and obstacle course skills. They provided helmets, bicycle safety class, and basically how to proper wearing of helmets, proper bicycle riding, street signage, how to read street signs, and so on. Our Traveling Teens Camp, which is for campers ages 12 to 15, they went on a pedestrian safety field trip. They actually rode a Metro bus from Pacific Community Center to Glendale Transportation Center. So basically, they taught the campers on pedestrian safety and how important it is to read signs and wear the personal protective equipment. This program was funded by the Coca-Cola Foundation. So Walk and Rollers group received a small donation from Coca-Cola to provide this program for South Glendale kids. So that's when they asked staff at Pacific Community Center to organize this workshop. On August 29th, we had our 22nd annual cruise night. That was held on Brand Boulevard between Milford and Broadway. We estimate about 35,000 people attended the event, enjoying 320 classic cars. And we had live entertainment provided by Jumping Jack Flash, which was a tribute to the Stones, Smooth Sounds of Santana, and the Chantays. We also had a firework finale at the end of the event, which was bigger and longer. It was a very good fireworks show, and I heard the oohs and ahs from everyone behind backstage, so that was a really good addition to the event. And next month I'll be bringing the financial report and reporting the financials to the group. And then our One Glendale after-school youth sports program. This is the program which was in collaboration with Glendale Unified. We have 4 elementary schools that we're working with to provide after-school youth sports programming, and that started on August 31st. Our next game day is this coming Wednesday, September 23rd, between 3:15 and 4:30 at Pacific Community Center in Maple Park. For the new commissioners, Commissioner Satarian and Commissioner Michaels, the after-school youth sports program is basically a joint collaboration with Glendale Unified. We provide after-school recreation programming at Edison Elementary, Mann Elementary, Cerritos, and Marshall. City staff basically teaches the kids. It's a sports structured program. So we have 3 8-week sessions. 4 8-week sessions, total of 32 weeks. So the first session will be flag football. So we're currently in the flag football season, we call it. Next will be soccer, basketball, and then volleyball. So Wednesdays we compete. Actually, the schools compete against each other. And last Wednesday we had our first event, which was really successful. The principals are competing against each other. Principals are excited. The parents excited. So our next game will be this coming Wednesday, the 23rd. So hopefully, if you have time, you guys can make it out there, which will be held at Pacific and Maple Park. Any questions?
Questions or comments, Commissioners?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7D3, Trails and Open Space.
President Wu, Commissioners, very, very quickly, I want to make sure to allow some time for the Human Services monthly report, which will be next. But we do have a very active interpretive programming program based at Duke-Majan Wilderness Park. On August 14th, we held our annual popular Perseid meteor shower viewing party at the park, where more than 60 residents joined us, and were able to look through giant telescopes at the meteor showers far, far off into the distance. And then we do have a monthly workday, which is part of the Duke-Majan Restoration Project, which started shortly after the station fire. That was held on August 22nd. It's held every third Saturday of the month. And at this particular workday, we introduced a new partner named Bob, which is a giant fabric thing that looks like a small tent that is used for watering. We load it in the back of a truck and we fill it with water, and we use that to water the small trees in the park. We also had a work day this past Saturday on September 19th, so we'll give you more details on that at the next meeting. That concludes this month's report.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next is 7D4, Human Services.
President Wu, members of the Commission, my name is Moises Correa with the CDBG Program in Human Services, and welcome to the new members. The first time I come up here, just like Yvette. This will be a very brief presentation. You had a report from the Federal Community Development Block Grant Program of our recent activities with our capital improvement projects, which are essentially the CDBG nonprofit facility improvements that we do throughout the year. And I'll cut through some of the report because I know its time is of the essence here. It's just to give you an outline of what you see in your report and some of the projects we're doing. Yvette talked about homeless programs, and CDBG funds we do use CDBG funds for capital projects to improve the homeless facilities, while Yvette and her programs fund the operation. This is Door of Hope, a transitional housing facility for 13 women and children at an undisclosed confidential site that these residents are usually come from backgrounds of domestic violence. So we do not disclose the site. I'm very particular with the pictures even. We're doing a bathroom renovation project for Door of Hope. There will be 13 bathrooms that are completely remodeled from just bare walls to some very nice tiled bathrooms with new sinks, new fixtures throughout the building. The second part of this project is a solar panel installation project where we'll be installing solar panels for the building to save on energy costs, and those savings go directly back to the operations of the program, so that essentially that's almost like a fundraising activity for them. They will save on energy, put that money back into the program. I can't show the exterior of the building. Again, it's confidential, or where the solar panels go, but this kind of shows the project we're working on for Door of Hope. You're probably all familiar with Home Commitment. They have a youth center on San Fernando Road, actually two campuses, one on the north side and one on the south side. This is the south side campus. We'll be doing two projects of Home Commitment this year. First one's going to be another solar panel project of, I think, 21 panels that will go on the first phase of this building to the left of that for solar energy again. Again, is to help conserve energy, be environmentally friendly, and of course, savings to the agency. The second part is the bathroom renovations project, which will be renovating 4 of the 6 bathrooms this year for the youth center, and these will be primarily on the first floor of the building where the youth are in the gyms and in the interest public areas, but they'll all be renovated with new stalls, new fixtures. These are very old restrooms. The third project is the Armenian Relief Society, a program that provides a variety of social services to Glendale residents, and we'll be primarily working on 2 projects here. One would be a exterior and interior security camera. This is highly used throughout the year, and we want to ensure the safety of the clients and the staff by putting in some cameras inside the building and outside, and they do, again, a variety of activities there. One of them is a big, it's Christmas as they get prepared. This was last year, not this year. They're not there yet, but that will be coming up soon for cameras installation. The second part is actually doors that will be ADA accessible, and those are the push-button doors that go in the front. ARS does have a large senior population they service, so we are getting a lot of requests for automatic door for ADA access. The fourth building is a community Glendale Adventist Medical Center, Holly Drive, way up north by the freeway, This is right next to the main medical center. This building's one of those buildings that people don't know about, but it is a community service center for low-income residents to get services such as food, clothing, and also an area to have activities. This is a project where we're going to do restroom modifications to the building, inside the building. The gymnasium will be improved with some bathrooms through that secret door. That door is actually leads to a restroom there. It's a 1920, 1913 building, I believe, historic building, and we'll be providing some restrooms that side and the other side. The gym will house the senior center for Adventist Hospital. They will be modifying with their own funding the entire gym to provide services for seniors, which will now be called the Wellness Center. And those are the projects we currently have on our portfolio for the CDBG program. If there's any questions regarding these projects.
Are you funded 100% from CDBG?
Good question. They're not all funded by CDBG. Part of it is some matching funds by the agency. CDBG does fund majority of this, about 95%. Some of the other funds are coming from, example, the hospital or the Door of Hope project, which will be some matching funds for architectural fees, or Hormone Etman providing architectural fees and ARS. So about 95% of this funded out of CDBG.
Okay. And who qualifies for it?
The qualifications are for agencies that provide services to low and moderate income residents. You must be an agency that can show that you are providing services to whether homeless, seniors, youth that live in the low and moderate income areas of Glendale. We do primarily service southern Glendale, which is below Colorado and Broadway, actually, for those areas that we target for CDBG funds. And that's primarily where our target area is and where our agencies are to service the low and moderate income residents.
What is your budget, annual budget?
Well, our CDBG budget is unfortunately been reduced drastically, and we have come here past with $2 million budgets. Before that, 6 years ago, it was $4 million. The budgets have been reduced about 50% to approximately now to $2 and now to about $1.7 million budget of CDBG, drastically cut from the previous years, and we continue to see a cut each year, and we're hoping that this year again is something that would be around the same of $1.7 million in CDBG funds, but we'll have to see what happens with the budget and the election coming up.
Is it cut from the federal funds, or is cut from the CDBG committee?
It's cut from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, and then from there, the CDBG Advisory Committee, which is another committee in our department, would make the recommendations for CDBG funds and where they will be allocated to particular agencies applying for CDBG, and those recommendations do go to City Council. The process now is in November. We'll RFP out those CDBG funds. Application due December, and the committee meets in February to review those proposals. We certainly rely on our agencies to provide some type of matching fund that would help with the process to get projects moving forward, including assistance with architectural fees or planning or building permit fees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We've reached the end of our agenda, so next is adjournment.
Adjourn. Thank you.